Hey, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. I made a video a couple of videos ago which suggested that people should try the juicer. Now, I know that when people go on these infomercials, they are incredibly successful at making whatever the product is seem like the next thing compared to, say, sliced bread, what they used to say. Oh, it's the best thing since sliced bread. Well, I actually went on the juicer for several months, and the difference that it made to the level of my health was incredible. I was working out at the same time as well, and I used to ride my bike, and I've mentioned all this before. But one of the things that I think people miss when you talk to someone who is greatly overweight and has a stomach which, and I'm not trying to be offensive and disrespectful to anyone who has a weight problem. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to show, oh, look at me, I'm compared to you, I'm very slim, so therefore I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to suggest a way that you can make that weight drop off, and that's the juicer. Let's look at the advantages of going on the juicer. Now, obviously you will have the same challenges that you will have with any diet. You've got the same challenges. You're having a massive change in your eating, and it's not easy. So I'm not saying that this is dead easy. But one thing that comparatively is dead easy is that the weight will drop off. Now, in a lot of cases, when you go on these fancy diets, there is a payback. You know, you're not as healthy, not as energetic, not as any of these things. Yes, you might be actually dropping in weight, and you may consider that that is the biggest thing. Now, let me suggest to you that if you're a woman, let me suggest to you that you go on YouTube and type in fitness girls. And if you have an aversion to the idea of doing weights, right, in other words, going to the gym and actually lifting some weights, if you think that you're going to get muscular, or if you're one of those women who's saying, well, I don't want to be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I don't want to be like one of those freaks who are bigger than men, and let's face it, those women that dedicate their lives to bodybuilding have a body that, apart from the female side of things, I would love to have, because of the the muscle to weight, the muscle to fat ratio is minimal. They're down in almost in the single digits. Well, definitely in the single digits of fat. Now, if you think that you're going to look like that, if you go to the gym 3 times a week for, say, 45 minutes or an hour, if you think that, let me put it to you that that would be like taking your clapped out ancient, I don't know, any kind of old clunker of a car, taking it to the car wash, putting it through the car wash, and going round the other end after you paid your $5 and expecting a BMW to come out. It's not going to happen. The women that get incredible muscularity because that's their business, and let's face it, it is their business. They're there to make money, and they dedicate their lives to something that they love, and in doing so, they become champions. How do they become champions? They change every single part of their life to pursue that one goal, and that is to win. I don't know if there is such a thing as Miss Olympia, but to win those bodybuilding championships, which will make them a professional. They get a professional card. They have to do so much. They have to have so many achievements in order to get that card. Now, they're champions, and it's no different to me starting up jogging and saying, well, I don't know, I don't have any desire to do the 4-minute mile, so I'm not going to jog. There's no way that that's going to happen for various reasons, 79 that I can think of. You have to get a sense of balance and try to overcome ingrained beliefs about what certain activities can do for you. Now, if you become jaded about the idea that the juicer is just a fad, let me tell you what the juicer actually involves. It takes all of the juice out of a colossal number of fresh foods. Now, here's the difference between eating on the juicer and not. When you are not eating on the juicer, you will be a lot on processed food. You will be probably eating a lot of fast food. Now, all of these things have processing techniques involved. So if you go in and you buy, and I'm the worst for this, I buy canned food. And I know that the canned food will have preservatives in it, which will preserve what it actually will be able to stand when it's on the shelf. That's why I've said this before about going to the supermarket, and you go to the supermarket and you pick stuff off the shelf which may have been in the shelf for a long time. And how do they do that without it going off, or well, they have a shelf life, don't they? They have a shelf date. But that date can be 2 years. What on earth do they do to food that it will last for 2 years? So, if you go on to the juicer, and and I don't have shares in the juicer company, but I do have an interest in helping people to get into a healthier mode of life. And now I've got to go off and kill some dogs. Sorry, that was the dog's chorus, and apparently somebody had walked through the yard, so one starts barking and they all start barking. But to get back to it, you would be on the juicer, and I don't have shares in the company. I wish I did. What's happening is that you've changed the quality of the food that's going into your guts, and it's easier to digest. But not just that, it's fresh food, and you've given up pretty well on all of the preservatives. In those preservatives you've got the sugar, salt. I'm no great expert on all of the stuff that goes into food, but I know that they do some horrendous stuff in order to be able to maintain their profit level, and that something that was put into the shelf 6 months ago, and because of, say, I don't know, say somebody who didn't do his job very well in circulating food around on the shelves when he's loading food up in a supermarket, which I anticipate that they're supposed to do. They're not just supposed to keep putting stuff in at the front, putting it in, and that's all you ever take, leaving the stuff that's at the back to just stay there. They're not supposed to do that, I doubt. Now, you'll be going into the supermarket and you'll be going to the vegetable and fruit section. Now, how do you know what to get? Well, the basic is always carrots, and carrots have an enormous amount of good food quality in them. But if you are looking for, well, yes, but I don't know anything about the juicer, try going online to YouTube and type in juicer recipes, and the computer will probably explode because it's got 20,000 responses in 5 seconds or less. There's any number of information there. What prompted me to make this video? I had I had a comment by one of our subscribers, and he said, you were right on about the juicer, because I mentioned it in a recent video about the juicer. And I mentioned about the fact that two things. I said I'd never felt healthier than when I was on the juicer. Plus, even though I'm not heavily built, I've got, at the time, a middle-aged gut, and it just disappeared. The weight just dropped off me. I lost 17 pounds. But I was also working out at the gym, so I was maintaining lean muscle. So I was losing fat, but I was actually gaining lean muscle. And it takes a little bit of research to find out about that. So if you go back to my suggestion to look at being a woman, say, you go back to my suggestion and check out on YouTube fitness girls. And if you think that having muscle on is not sexy or beautiful or attractive, you've got quite a surprise coming, because those girls are a knockout. They're hard body, and they will give you their success stories in a lot of cases, and some of them started off as, well, giving plump or fat a bad name. They started off with a lot of challenges, and they end up looking terrific. They're not just looking that way. They have competitions where they are tested in strength, in looks, in agility, and all kinds of stuff, which all indicates in fitness, being in good shape. So if you've got any doubts about that, just go and look at those women who have not become huge, but just look their best, and you will get a lot of inspiration from that. Now back to the food itself. Without all of the processing that goes into food, you're taking a terrific number of aspects of fitness it's kind of out of the recipe. It's like taking all of those things which have the side effects and getting rid of them. Now, the movie that I always suggest, and I said this in my answer to this subscriber who talked about his success story, and I said that I despair at the indifferent response when I mention a movie called Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. And people in some strange way become offended if you say that. It's like saying, hey, you're fat, sick and nearly dead. Here's the right movie for you. Which couldn't be further from my mind. Well, my friend here said to me, you were right on about the juicer. You were right on about the weight loss and the health benefits. And he said, when I was on the juicer, in fact, I think, was he still on the juicer? In fact, I think he was still on the juicer. So he had recommended it to a woman who had been sent home to die. It happens, believe me, when the medical profession can't do anything for you, they'll cold as ice. Well, you better just go home and enjoy what little is left for you. He recommended the juicer to her, and being that she had been told there's no hope, she said, what the hell, I'm going to go for this, clearly. And that's what she did. And she cured herself. Oh gosh, I've said that word cure. You're not allowed to use cure because it's owned by the medical profession. So anything else is just a freak of nature. It's just one of those things. Probably you were misdiagnosed in the first place. You couldn't possibly have been before. You couldn't possibly be cured, could you? Now, if you've got a lot of weight loss, if you've got a lot of weight on, let me put another couple of things to you as to why you should try to lose weight. The more that you put on in the front there, the more gut that you acquire. This applies a lot to guys, because they like their beer, and beer will do it for you, among the other things that you eat when you do that kind of lifestyle. And a lot of them will actually proudly pat their big belly and say, got a lot invested in this. And it ain't funny. It's not funny. If you've got a body, that's why they have this ratio of, if you tell a health nutritionist, you're talking on the phone, say, I'm thinking of coming to you because I'd really like to lose some weight, and she would say, what is your height? And you say, in my case, 5'9". And she would say, well, you should be about 160 pounds, which is about what I am, but I like to be a little bit leaner than that, so when I go back on the juicer, I will drop down below that, and probably 145 to 150, but I'll be working out at the same time, so it will be good. If you then say 5'9", or even 6 foot, and you start talking in 3 digits, she's going to say that you're overweight. Now, what happens when you're overweight? In the movie Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead, the Australian man who is, for want of a better word, the lead role in it, the story is about him and his success in losing weight and getting healthy. Two things together, not just losing weight and getting healthy. He travelled, he obviously had money, he got a battery that could be recharged in the car, he got in his little SUV, and he toured around the States, and he interviewed various people, just talking to them in the street, and said, hey, have you ever tried a juicer? And he'd let them try a juice. Well, one of the people that he met was a truck driver who was, if my memory serves me right, somewhere between 3 and possibly 350 pounds. He might even have been 400. I've heard of people being this before. Suffice to say, the best that he could do in terms of walking was to get out of his truck at the motel and walk to his room. Can you imagine that? Because the man's body shape was so incredibly overweight that his thighs are chafing as he walks along, his knees are under terrific stress. If you're 5'9" or even 6 feet and you are 100 pounds overweight, all of your body is under stress. You're now carrying around a ton of stuff. Now, try going to the supermarket and buying 50 pounds of grocery and then carrying it to the car. Now, admittedly, because you're carrying it in a bag, 2 hands on 2 bags, well, it's not the same, is it? I mean, it's not distributed all over your body, and that's very true. But if you are 60 or 100 pounds overweight, you are carrying that extra weight. And if you are drastically overweight, if you are obese, and I have read that in, say, America, possibly 50, and I'm chickening out a little bit here by saying 50 to 60% of people are obese. Not just overweight, obese. Now, what this man did that was rescued, the truck driver, he couldn't face what the Aussie was telling him to do. So the Aussie left him with this offer. He said, if you decide that you want to do this, I will come back and I will help you get set up so that you can do it. And the Aussie left and they parted friends. A little while later, the Aussie got a phone call and his new overweight friend said, "Can I take you up on your offer?" And the Aussie flew over to the States, and he helped his friend find a little sort of lakeside resort, from what I remember, and he installed him in a room there, and I guess he paid the room, and he made it possible for him as a means of charity, giving charity. And he arranged so that he would have an adequate supply, constant supply, without having to go out and order it, and it would be brought to him. That's how I remember it. If you watch the movie, please call up and say you were totally wrong, and I'll say thank you. Well, he stayed with him a little while just to make sure that he could form a proper schedule and live on it. And then he flew back to the Oz. The man toughed it out, and he admitted later it was tough because people were partying and they were barbecuing, and the smell was coming up from those lakeside tables where people go to barbecue, and it was tough because he was damned hungry. Now, he stayed on it, and he stayed with it, and I think he stayed on it for something like 3 to 4 months. Now, the success story there is that he now talks, he gives talks to people who are desperate to lose weight. And he has a particularly incredible way of showing the amount of weight that he was carrying before he went on the juicer. And he has a rack behind him with, I think, 6 or more, possibly more, bowling balls. Now, if you've ever seen those things, it's bigger than my head, and they weigh a lot. And he's got 6 of them there. Now, if you ever go bowling, you pick up one of those balls. Boy, try picking up 2 of them and walk into your car. No, illegally, of course. It would be a lot. He was carrying that around. He could only walk 5 minutes. A 5-minute walk, that's 2.5 minutes there and 2.5 minutes back to his hotel room when he started. And now he's no thinny, he's not an ultra thinny, okay, but he is healthy. He's off the medication that he was on. I forgot to mention that the Aussie took his friend to a nutritionist doctor, and they did all the tests on him, right, for blood, heart, the whole thing, right, hypertension, the overweight thing, the fat ratio in his body. They did a whole rundown, and the Oz asked the doctor, "This is what we're going to do, can you," and they got the all clear to be able to do this. So they asked that question that I have had to ask a couple of times when we've been helping. What will happen if she doesn't do anything? And the answer in both of the times that I have been forced to ask that question was death. So they made it clear to our truck driver that if he didn't do this anyway, he was going to die because his body would not be able to handle what he was expecting to carry it round. You know, when you put on 100 pounds, your heart doesn't put on 100 pounds or any ratio that is equivalent. Your liver doesn't expand to handle the extra load, nor do your kidneys, and your lungs don't, and the muscles that are under stress are not particularly a whole lot bigger, they're just fatter. And the joints, imagine a joint that is specifically designed to handle, say, well, let's say a 25-pound load, that it will handle a 25-pound load. And now suddenly it's being expected to handle a 60 or 70-pound load. what do you think those joints will do? I have a friend who cannot sit too long and cannot stand too long either, because he is a lot overweight. I don't think that he is ever going to change, but that's his decision. Our truck driver also had a brother who had the same kind of lifestyle, and they talked to him and they told him what his brother, the truck driver, was going to do. And he said, I'm really glad for him, but it's not for me. I enjoy my beer, I enjoy my cigarettes, I enjoy going out and having a party. It's not for me. I'll take what comes. Well, he did take what comes in the form of a heart attack sometime later, and apparently after that he listened to his newly streamlined brother, who was giving talks to people who were desperate to lose weight, and he went on to the juicer. So, if you're thinking that you need to have some extra inspiration, have a look on Netflix and you'll find Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. Have a look at it. It's an inspirational success story. It's not a downer, doomer movie. It's a kind of like a documentary, right? There's no acting. It's the man himself. And they even followed him back to Australia, and they spoke to his secretary. He was a well-off guy. He was successful. He had a company. He could afford all the excesses, and he took of them, partook of them. And they asked his secretary, what's the difference now? Now that he's done this, what's the difference? She said, he's sharper. He's sharper in his thinking. So the benefits are extraordinary. And I'm going soon to be reporting to you on the fact that I am back on the juicer and what the benefits are day by day or week by week probably, in what I'm doing and what I'm eating. I'll be eating fresh food. Another thing before I go is that I will be eating raw food. And that's a big, big thing, because a lot of the food that we eat, once we heat it, it loses all of its nutritional value. Now, what I did do after a couple of months on the juicer, having only juice, I just missed having a solid meal in my stomach. So I used to get the frying pan out, I'd have a dash, and not much of a dash, of olive oil, virgin olive oil, the best that I could afford to buy, and I would cook fresh vegetables, and I would have maybe a little tuna or maybe a little chicken in there. And I mean a little chicken, just to be for the taste, but that would go in and out as soon as it even got mildly hot, and I'd have an evening meal that was solid, and I'd have it before 8 o'clock. So I hope we've looked at why you should be taking that weight off, and it's not because of all those people who are fatophobes and can't stand the look of fat people. It's because you're actually giving yourself a life, a quality of life in later years. If you're young, you'll be scoffing at this, saying, hey, I'm fat and jolly, people love me. And no doubt they do, but it's not just because you're fat and jolly. It's probably mainly because you're jolly. And maybe I'm being offensive to you there. I hope not. I would love to see some success stories where you have gone on the juicer and found the great benefits. Now, there are other ways of eating fresh food that's raw. The juicer was the one that I took. If you find another way of doing it, yeah, I would love to hear about that. And if it's an interesting story with a good with a good ring of success to it, I'll read it out on a video. So thanks for looking in. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Let's hear from you. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and if you know someone who you think might benefit from hearing my particular take on why you shouldn't be overweight, then share. Bye for now. This is a foreigner in the Philippines.